Hi, I'm Shikhar. I'm one of the co-founders at ConveGenius. We are recording the first episode of season 3 of CG Baat, and I'm sitting here with 5 very talented people from ConveGenius who have helped us grow the organization from 4 people to a 500 people team. Today we'll be talking or exchanging a lot of stories about the fun times that we've had at ConveGenius, the hard times we've had at ConveGenius, and what kind of people or what kind of team we have been able to build in the last 10 years, and what kind of people are we looking to sort of get into the organization for our next set of growth journey. So the first member on the panel is Venkatesh Reddy. He takes care of CG Insights. CG Insights is the assessments business of ConveGenius. Then we have with us Shivangi Jain. Shivangi is looking at our most important learning product, which is the personalized adaptive learning product. Also, she looks after the content and the academic team at ConveGenius. Then we have Rahul Garg. Rahul Garg is our go-to person to know what's really happening on the ground, because a lot of people say that ConveGenius is everywhere and Rahul is partly responsible for it because we're literally everywhere. Then we have Siddharth Nayar with us. Siddharth Nayar is one of our most senior people from the technical team. He looks at back-end development, is a part of the technology team and the engineering team at ConveGenius. Then we have Akanksha Ghai, who has already changed 3 roles in 3 months at ConveGenius. But right now she's responsible for product delivery. So some of the fastest solutions that we're building at ConveGenius for governments are coming from Akanksha's team. You know, we've been here for many years now. We've been coming to office, we've been sort of meeting clients. Tell me one of the most embarrassing moments that you've had at CG till now. I think that's a good point to start from.
So I was traveling for a client meeting, and it was not even Holi, it was the week prior to Holi. And I was traveling, and there was a stretch of journey where I had to catch an auto and go to the office of the client. And I sat in the auto and I was moving, and suddenly I see that there was a bus which is coming from the opposite direction, and the bus driver had actually used a pitchkari to spray entire holy water on me. And I was dressed in this nice suit, fancy suit, and I had the colors on me, and I couldn't cancel the meeting, so I had to turn up at the client office
Looking like that.
And the client was looking at me saying that, as in, what happened to you?
Why are you wearing CG colors?
Right, so
You could have. Plus, that's important.
yeah, so I couldn't explain to him. I could only come up with saying that, I had to come through Haryana. So this is generally what happens in Haryana.
Holi starts in NCR, I think, at least a month in advance. Yeah. It's a risky time to go to meet.
You could have said we work hard, we play harder.
Yeah, but in that moment, somehow the mind stalls, right?
Yeah.
But that would have been a true statement.
Yeah, I came back and narrated this to somebody, and they said, "Ki
ये तो होते ही रहता है."
Yeah, as in they were like, I'm surprised they couldn't see the funnier side of it.
Why don't you go, Siddharth?
So I have a similar story where Arnav and Ashok thought that I was drunk.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That was not embarrassing.
It was a contract.
That was B98, I think.
That was B90.
Way back in 2016 or something, I remember.
So I was having Nimbu Pani, but they thought I'm drinking.
I remember this very vividly. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Arnav, being Arnav, he was very worried for some reason. And I was like, "Bhai, kya hua? What happened?" It just, like, he seemed flushed. He seemed visibly flushed. You could see, and Arnav getting flushed is not a very easy occurrence, right? You could see his face entirely flushed. And I was like, Arnav, what happened? He's like, यार कुछ गड़बड़ हो गया. मैंने कहा, क्या हुआ? ऐसे क्या हो गया? He's like, यार ये सिद्धार्थ, ये जो दूसरा लड़का, नया लड़का जो आया है, I think they're drinking enough.
And this all started because Viprav को ये लगा. Viprav complained कि ये कुछ कर रहे हैं. Because me and Ritesh were talking, we had Nimbu Pani in our hands.
Yeah.
And for some reason we were discussing vodka.
तो
Right? And he saw that Nimbu Pani and heard vodka, and then
So Viprav being Viprav and Arnav being Arnav, this became a huge conversation piece for quite some time. And then he's like, "Hey, look, इनसे बात करनी पड़ेगी." Then I remember Arnav and Ashok took you inside.
yeah, took us to separate rooms.
To
So that we cannot
Corroborate the stories.
Oh my god, investigation.
And I still had that Nimbu Pani in my hand.
did Arnav taste that?
No,
Have what I'm having.
You guys have been in the system for I guess you
9.
9 years.
More
9.
than 9, I am 9.
You also 7.
6 to 7.
You've seen our different offices. This is probably the 4th or 5th office that we have, depending on when you joined. I think for me, I think this is the 6th office. But
Fourth one for us.
Fifth, no?
B98 से fourth one. हाँ.
B98 was your first office. I remember interviewing.
Yeah. My interview was.
So tell me your favorite office and tell me some times that you spent, fond memories from this office.
I think B52 in that case.
B52.
The last one.
Remind me which one was it? The blue one.
The one, yeah.
The one
The
you
last
said.
one in Noida.
Blue parde wala.
Mine was 98. It was the first office. These kind of incidents used to happen and I used to enjoy. I was a newbie in the office, young one. I was like, kya office hai yaar? We had an all-girls team. And there were like multiple people in that team and every day there was something that was happening. Someone was pouting about something, someone else was happy about something
So I
else.
think that was more of a content team.
Yeah, the tech team was very chill and everyone was chill, but yeah.
Tech team mein Arnav or Siddharth.
I think they were like
Nitin was also there.
Oh, Nitin
Like
as
most
well.
of us were also like we joined right out of college.
right out of college. I didn't know that this is the work culture usually. I thought yahi hota hai startup.
I think the oldest person in the office was like 26 or 25.
Back then.
Jairaj was
Shashank. Shashank is the older amongst us. Yeah.
I was very young, so I thought this is how startups are.
You just said that you were the oldest. This was your first gig out of college for both of you, and now it's been 9 years, and now both of you are sort of leading these huge, massive, high impact sort of teams. I want to understand what is it that you have sort of reflected on has eventually become your management style. Who have you evolved as a person? What kind of a leader have you sort of evolved into?
So it has been starts and stops. And what I have learned in the last 9 years is you can never like pretend to be a hard ass if you're not. You can never pretend to be very empathetic if you're not. So as long as you are yourself, even if it's being a bit blunt and being a bit crass sometimes, I think even the people that you work with, they also start understanding your nature and they also start understanding your intent. I have a huge team with people who have been working in the industry older than I am, and I have led those people. So that was one of the biggest challenges, like people who have been working for 30 years and now they are being led by a 30-year-old. So how to connect with them? I think connecting with your team and just understanding that, okay, this is me and this is who I'm going to project has been a huge turn for me, at least when it comes to leadership.
What was your understanding in 2016 or 15 whenever you joined? What was your understanding of what an ideal leader is versus what it is today, having walked in that lane for about 9 years?
Back then I thought dunya badal denge. My thing was, give me 5 years, I'll change the education system. I'm going to be that leader, leading from the front, because that's what you have seen na. I was a sports person also, so it was like, if you're a sports person, you need to be front of the fire, you need to do everything, you need to be front and center, create an example. But I think over the years I have realized that you need to learn from your peers. Even a young one who has just joined will teach you something. And being a leader is not about fighting from the front. Sometimes it's standing back, letting your team even fall down and figure out what they need to do to stand back up. So I think that is a learning that I have had.
What about you, Siddharth?
So I'd say over these years, I started managing a team, I think 2 years after I joined ConveGenius. And then initially I struggled.
There is a very small team then, now it's a fairly big team.
It's a bigger team now. I manage 9 people. So back then, I was a little hesitant in delegating work. Now I can delegate work more effectively. Earlier I used to think, okay, but why don't I do this? Why do I have to? I can do this faster, right? So I struggled with that initially, but then slowly I learned to trust my team members, and then, I came to the conclusion that we cannot scale if I don't delegate, right? So that is something I've learned, and now I can delegate pretty effectively.
So Akanksha, let me ask you this. You've recently joined ConveGenius and you've had a terrific career in the EdTech industry and specifically also the impact industry in EdTech.
Right.
Because you're new and we've sort of been, I wouldn't say a bubble, but we've sort of only seen each other. So when you sort of entered ConveGenius for the first time, What were your first 3 days like, and what did you absorb? What did you love? What did you not love? What were your observations about how people work here?
Right.
And also specifically, like, what is it that makes us tick and what works for us that
Right.
you did not or you haven't seen in other organizations?
Right. No, so my day one was pretty interesting because I was coming straight out of a very beautiful holiday. I had taken a road trip to Manali and I was there for 1 week by myself, and then, and immediately after I was starting here. So I was sort of taking over from Harshali.
Oh,
Harshali was then supposed to move back to Bombay, and I was taking over. And so day one, I've been introduced to Harshali, and I've been told Harshali is going to give you a download of what it's going to be. So Harshali and I catching up through the day. She's sort of bringing me up to speed on a few pieces, and Shank then walks past us and he's like, okay, is Akanksha ready to pick up now? And I'm like, oh, okay. So Harshali is like, yeah, I'm giving her like, some bits and pieces. He's like, no, she's fresh out of a holiday. Her brain is absolutely a blank canvas. Just give it all to her today. And I'm like, okay, that's great, So that was kind of very interesting. Immediate next 2 days, I was involved in a lot of things. So somebody would come and ask me a question, and some questions I actually had answers to, and the others I didn't, and I would, sort of either find Harshali or Shashank. And at the end of, because you're saying 3 days, I think at the end of day 3, I was doing something, and I thought the runway time was pretty quick. So that was my impression, and I like that. I personally thrive on pace. I personally thrive on that big high energy to get things moving. So that's what got me excited, that there's a lot of movement happening, and I'm entering right in the middle of it. So the term I used, and I told this to Shashank, I said it almost feels like trying to sit in a running Ferrari. Like, that's the kind of thrill I'm getting. The Ferrari is running and I have to just like run with it and then grab a seat. But that's what my first 3 days actually looked like, and it was quite interesting, yeah.
Rahul, do you remember joining? I mean, I know it's
Ancient history.
ancient history now.
Rahul was my neighbor when he joined. He sat just on the side.
Oh, he was a work neighbor.
Yeah.
He may know a few things.
Yeah, no, I remember joining, but I think what Akanksha was just mentioning, right? It's we are like that, right? So I mean, anyone who's coming in, maybe a day or at max 2 is what they will get, and then they are they are put onto that Ferrari.
Remember your Ferrari was, you had to design this whole EdTech fellowship.
Exactly. On day 2 itself, yeah. Day 1, a little bit download that we are trying to sort of start a fellowship, and the initial idea is this and that. This is our thinking, but you go ahead and design it. And tomorrow, let's have a presentation as to how will we go about it.
This is what happened with me as well. Yeah, when I joined. So I switched.
I thought Anna was the calmest.
No, I changed jobs for the very reason I was not getting work
Oh, wow.
at my previous job. So the day I joined here, I think I had a 1-hour session with Arnav where he gave me an overview of what is the architecture of like whatever we have. And then he gave me like 5 tasks. Say, okay, now you have access to everything, all the code. Now get this done by the end of the day. And I was like, this is not what I expected. This is a sudden shift.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you never complained about not having enough work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No one can complain here.
I think my story was a little bit different in the sense that I was coming out of the World Bank, and World Bank was chill in the sense that whatever work you get, you don't work continuously for the entire month, because you are either a long-term consultant or a short-term consultant, and you have to scatter your days across the month. And one piece of the business is what I had always been involved with before joining ConveGenius for the last 10 years. And I knew how to grow such organizations, right? That's why I joined, because I knew how to lead the insights piece of the business. And when I joined, the impression was that here is a team of 50 people and we can handle all loads of work. It's the business that you are able to trying to get business, right? Everything else is sorted. But then you join and you realize that you are the one who has to unpack everything, unpack all problems, retrofit and refit everything so that it functions in a certain manner, not only for yourself, for the people that you are trying to work with, and also for the larger organization, right? But when you are studying, right? When you are studying or you have these ideas or theoretical notions about leadership, right? And you hear terms like adaptive leadership, right? Or You have things like when you are working with small organizations who are also in the competing space, you end up doing firefighting on a daily basis, and then as part of firefighting, sometimes you come and you save the day for everyone, right? So that's what you feel like, heroic leadership. You came and solved the problem for everyone, but it does not work. And with ConveGenius, where you had more than 100 odd people at that point of time, you realize that with a lot of planning and structural thinking, you can avoid that last minute heroic leadership, right? And you can also solve planning as a problem for a lot of people.
Each organization I've worked, there have been very well-defined heroes, very well-established heroes, and at CG, interestingly, that's not the case. You can't count heroes on your fingers, which is very, very different from every organization I've worked in the last 15 years, and that is, I think, also a USP of CG. The reason we are able to do so much on any given day or in any given hour is because there are so many heroes at work, right? And that just enables us to absorb scale truly.
I think that also comes in from the culture that we are trying to set with the people who are joining in, right? From the day one, we don't actually tell them that, here is your boss. You have to just do, what they are asking you to do, etc. I think when I joined, right, then there was other team members I was asked to hire, etc. Right? There was certain notions, as we were earlier discussing, right? We had certain notions that, I want to lead the team in a certain way, etc. Right? But I think there's one common thread that goes across CG, which is that, we put people on the fire, on that Ferrari very soon, right? And ask them to also figure out their own way of doing things. I think that gives everyone the chance to become a leader of their own, right? It helps them figure out, right? Once you put them out there, they make mistakes, and then you're obviously there to guide them. But I think that as a culture has worked very well for us, right? We don't actually tell them, that this is your job and this is what only you'll do, right? Because we have built this, the scale that we are at, right? Everyone here has sort of contributed to that. They come in, join, try and explore. For example, I've hired recently many people, right? Within a week, I also try that they are maybe facing a client or maybe some other stakeholder, etc. Obviously, they do make mistakes, but I think they learn a lot from that, right? I think that sort of vulnerability is also there within the organization, but I think that has worked well in our favor.
One more thing is that we don't like point fingers to individuals.
Yeah.
It's always if everything is going well, this team has done well. If everything is not going well, this team has fumbled the ball. It has never been you have done it. So even the new people who have come in, they have that cushion also. Ki, okay, even if I make mistakes, they have that room. Ki, okay, the team will help me out or the team will shoulder the burden with me. The leaders are also cultivated in a way ki, okay, if anything is happening, tell them that this is wrong, but don't point fingers in front of other teams or external stakeholders.
So what I'm trying to understand here, and that is that's the challenge that I sometimes face now. Also because the last 10 years I feel like I'm just too tired to interview people. I've just run out of patience. I'm like, please somebody else do it for me and find me the right candidate, right? So because you guys are the next line of leaders in the organization, I'm sure you do have to make very critical decisions every day as to who you should let enter in your team.
Yeah.
Is there one common personality trait that you've come across as a winner candidate for you? Something that you look for in the candidate that tells you कि भाई ये तो चल जाएगा यहाँ पे. Somebody who can pace up and sort of join the Ferrari.
Skill is one. I mean, when I look at all the people who are trying to, get in, because anyway, there's a lot of demand, right? There's brand now. Everyone knows ConveGenius in the sector. So people come in, apply, etc. So first filter, I think, is obviously skills.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that you're asking for is, do they have the right credentials and the intent to be able to contribute to a mission like this? So I think whenever I've looked at a profile, I've just asked them certain questions to really try and identify, do they have the right mindset? Is it for money only that they're doing it? Or is it something else deeper that they connect to the problem?
There are two candidates who are equally skilled.
Yeah.
Who probably sort of fare almost similar on all aspects. The technical aspects or whatever. right? What is that one factor that could be the differentiating factor between? ऐसा क्या सवाल पूछते हो? Because this comes for me almost every day. There are good candidates. Obviously now, because we're a brand, there are a lot of people who apply. There are obviously good candidates that come to us. Tom, Dick, Harrys don't come to us anymore. We are blessed for that. But when people who have similar abilities do come to us, what is that one question that you ask yourself, that if either of these two people have this one thing, I will go ahead, otherwise I will reject either one of them or both of them?
I would ask them, or I would actually ask certain questions around, are they connected to the problem or not?
Okay. So basically the intent or motivation.
Intent, motivation to work at scale, right? Because we don't work in smaller scales also, right? So the person needs to think big about the problem that we are trying to solve. Skill set is available, but the person will only stick with us if they have that common thread.
So you're saying that intrinsic motivation hai nahi iska for something of this sort?
For the problem that we are trying to solve. Because I also joined because of that reason, right? A lot of in my team, right, also joined because of that reason, right?
What about you?
So it's a little different in the technology team. Our interviews are quite objective. And unless we find like if it's an obvious red flag, say the person is switching companies every 3, 4, 5 months to get a bigger salary, then we might reject that person. Otherwise, if they have the skill set and they pass the interview, they are hired. We don't really look at other metrics, and it has worked quite well for us.
As in the first 1 year, I think when I joined, I did close to about 1,000 interviews, I think. And I think the conversion rate was not even 5% for me. What I realized that the normal stuff of asking individuals does not work anymore, because for me, connecting to the work that we are doing is easily available, because there is a lot of information about ConveGenius and the work that we do and the impact that we achieve at the states. So what additionally I look for them is I give them partial problems, right? And I look at how these individuals go about handling these problems, their frustrations when things are not available to them, and can they work with team members on the group, because that's the kind of situations we are almost always find ourselves in. Can he find his way? Does he have logical bent of mind given the information that he has? Because logic can be sort of taught, steps can be taught. If that person lacks a certain skill, that skill can be taught over a period of time. But if that person within that handling that frustration, if he can't work, if he's just an individual player, he can't work with the larger team, and he can't be focused on the larger goal that we are trying to achieve, then that does not.
So you're
work.
saying intent and motivation works for you as
Yeah.
if you find somebody very well motivated or highly on intent, then it's a go for you.
Yeah. But again, that person, when he communicates that intent, it should not be those internet researched answers, questions.
Yeah.
But more intricately aligned to our work.
I think we've sort of spoken to enough people to know when it is an internet answer and when it is real answer. What about you, Shivangi and Akanksha?
It's a little different for me, because what I have learned, and I have been through various roles, from a full-time teacher in a government school to a leadership development program to now doing product delivery, right? It's been quite a journey. So personally, if there are people who have to work along with me, I look for people who are curious learners. Okay. Because I'm like, whatever you're bringing to the table today is not what you will be doing 3 months from now. Yeah. We
especially
are evolving, especially at ConveGenius, right? Or general around the globe as well, right? We live in such an unpredictable world right now that if you're coming with, hey, here's what my CV looks like and here are my past laurels, I'm like, well, they will sustain you at best for a month with me. And then it's all done, right? Then what will make you thrive with me in my team or at ConveGenius is how curious are you to learn? How curious are you to pick up a new skill? How daunting do you feel when a new, problem statement is put in front of you and you're like, okay, this is not me, right? So I know a couple of years back, I was like, okay, I'm not a tech person, right? And now I'm discussing S3 buckets with Rishabh on a call, right? And I'm like, okay, what's the transformation looking like and what kind of triggers are we putting in? So it's fascinating, right? Yeah. So personally, I feel like that's what I look for, because I'm like, skill is something that knowledge and skill is something that can be gained so easily today and must be gained. Absolutely must be gained. It's about how curious you are and how quickly can you really absorb, and that totally depends on how much effort do you put in. I really believe output comes from practice.
So I also believe that skill can be taught apart from like some basics. One thing that I go when I interview people is like my gut, like how are they talking to me? If I ask them a very personal question, how are they responding? And one thing also is that do they have that entrepreneurial nature? Like if someone is just like blowing smoke and saying, okay, I'm a very hard worker, everyone says that. Do they actually want to work hard? Do they want to take this personally or not? Because our mission is very personal to most of us. It's not a 9 to 5, you clock in, you clock out, you don't care what is happening. So I always see that if a person is actually doing what he's saying, actually wants to do what he's saying, and then it's a very easy process to hire.
Another sort of interesting fact there is, do you create your own to-do lists or do you expect a to-do list to be given to you? Right? If you're and I think people can be broadly categorized in like two buckets. Right? So either you're a person who's creating your own to-do list or you're a person who's waiting for a to-do list to come to you, right?
Exactly.
Right? So to me, I'm like, well, I am not making your to-do lists. I have a lot of to-do lists to make for me. So if you're someone who's very, very interested in making a to-do list for you, right, picking up from various sources, you're the person I would pick any day. And I think you're a person that will thrive at ConveGenius because you make your own to-do lists.
You know, we also might be sort of almost projecting a state of excitement and glory, and you know, we've been 10 years, we've done so much work with 150 million students.
Yeah.
I know, and I'm sure all of you also have gone through a similar journey, but I know that there have been times in the last 10 years that have literally broken me and my back multiple times and over again. For the people that are going to be willing to be working with us in future, tell me a little bit more about those difficult times and what sort of got you through those difficult times.
COVID was one such time for us.
Yeah.
I think before COVID, what we were doing was largely in-school interventions, right? So after COVID, the schools went off, right? But I think the memories that I have from that time is that we actually stuck with our people, right? We didn't let go of anyone. We actually worked with everyone, brainstormed on, you know, how should we now work together with the new things that we have at hand, right? Then we figured out our way into chatbots and Swift Chat happened. I think that was one time where it also sort of builds in you. I think it taught us also to be adaptive, right? And to pivot also as an organization, right? Sometimes, I mean, we were also at that time just thinking about, you know, one technology, one solution, right? And going deep with that solution in multiple states and so on, right? I don't think at that time we were thinking of Swift Chat as such.
No, I think at that point in time it was just a necessity. You either do this or you don't.
Yeah, schools were closed. Like, what would you?
We were trying a lot of things, then this is one that stuck.
Then,
right?
yes.
And people got new roles also. Like before that, people were doing something else, but then people got new roles.
Exactly.
So people were also able to adapt. Everyone who was there in the teams, everyone adapted very quickly because they understood the severity of the situation. Yeah.
Which is where that intent of the person also again comes in, right? If you were to summarize our conversation, right? So entrepreneurial intent, right? Someone who can actually get things done for themselves and for the others, right? Not someone whom we have to give a to-do list.
Yeah.
That kind of a person won't fit in.
Or tell exactly what to do.
Yeah.
That has never worked for us. But couple of things that I want to pick from there. But for me, I think building an organization to a level was always a good thing to do, great thing to do. We were organically building, we were sort of getting the right people into the organization. But when COVID hit us, it was literally like a tsunami in the face of the organization because we also started struggling. Finances, everything. When we came out glorious of it, that was the time when I knew that this is the team that can do it.
Yeah.
That's the first time I had that kind of confidence in the team कि ये team तो कुछ भी कर सकती है. ये जो कुछ लोग हैं, इनको कुछ भी दे दो. These are the people who will thrive and eventually laugh in the face of misery, right? Now my question to all of you is, how do we find more such people? We already are a 500 batch. How do we find more such people? What is it that you would want to sort of, one message that you'd like to leave out for everybody who sort of is probably not even thinking of joining ConveGenius? What is it that we can tell them, or one message that we can transmit to them so that they understand that this is the right place to build not just a very, very strong team of 50 people, but perhaps 500 and 1500 people? What is that one thing that we can sort of let people know about us?
So when people join us, what I tell them is, okay, if you join us, your if the company's growth is exponential, your growth will also be exponential, and it won't be linear. So that is why you should join us, and that is what we, I think, guarantee also.
When it just automatically ends up happening if you're given like 15 things to do on day one.
If you work hard enough, your growth will also be.
I also give that example to people. Like, you join in a certain capacity. It doesn't matter if you have 1 year of experience or 20 years of experience. If you're doing good work, you will get ahead in the company, in the organization, in your own career, and you get a lot of opportunities also. It's not like we'll only do one appraisal a year and we'll do it for you. It's like you get opportunities to shine, you get opportunities to showcase your skills. So that is something that I think attract the people who are go-getters also. People who don't have to like follow a method, they can go out, research. I think those people should definitely join if they want.
I think one sort of observation that I've had on this, right, I've done now many interviews. So many interviews that you can actually call out like a common thread, right? So like you can certainly understand what are people really looking for, right? Even if I reflect back and try and see the lens through which I also sort of came into CG, right? First and foremost thing was impact, right? If you're someone who's looking for impact and impact at scale, this is the organization for you. If you are someone who's coming in through a tech lens, through technology, if you want to create impact at scale, again, this is an organization for you. If you want to earn better and be still in the impact sector, this is the organization for you, right? If you want a culture where you are appreciated, where you are led to grow yourself, right? Every day, day in, day out, where you have someone to actually hold you if you make any mistakes also. Again, this is an organization for you. I think if these are certain things that people are really looking for, somewhere or the other, maybe ConveGenius is something which is the right place for you.
I would add to what Rahul is saying, and again, this comes from personal experience. If you're a person who's working in an organization and you're like, okay, whatever I've been doing or I am doing, I know this work and I know the work my team does, but beyond that, I really don't know, which is what has always been my experience. And if that's something that either makes you curious or makes you frustrated, then ConveGenius is the place to be, right? Because there'll never be a day when you will only know what you are doing. You will be a part of conversations that you felt like they were so far away from what you were doing, but you'll realize it's also integrated. No matter what you're doing right now in the industry, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's not isolated, right? If you're a content person, it's not about that item that you're creating. It's also about the platform. It's also about the chatbot. It's also about the business development team, right? Everyone will come together for that one item to reach the child, right? But if you're stuck in an organization where you're like, okay, my work is creating this item, but then before this, after this, I have zero visibility, then ConveGenius is the place for you to be, because you'll really realize what that one item is doing. Is doing. So I think, then ConveGenius is definitely a place for you.
Like right after this, we have a meeting with people from 4 teams.
Shikhar and I are in a meeting with people from 4 teams, and I also didn't know tech when I joined. I famously ran from BTech after 1 month when I was doing it. But I learned so much in the 9 years and like shifted to product, and you get that opportunity to shift now. And everyone is there to help you out also to shift.
And I've felt that strongly because throughout my career, I've been almost in front-facing roles, right? And when you're sitting across a government stakeholder or a client, they would ask you a question, and then you would be sort of praying in your head saying, please ask me only about what I know and what I do. Do not ask me about what new are you guys doing or what, right? Like, because I won't have an answer. So like, please don't, right? But at ConveGenius, I'm like, I'm actually truly representing the organization. I'm not representing myself and just my team. I'm truly representing an organization sitting in front of a client or a stakeholder, and I can do that very confidently. And that is a feeling and that is a confidence I personally never experienced before in my career. So to me, that's a huge motivational factor of continuing my journey with ConveGenius as well.
So every morning 10 a.m. calls have worked in that case.
Oh yeah, actually, those 10 a.m. calls, I don't know how many teams come together. Probably all the departments.
It's a great wake up in the morning. Like your first call, hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think new members would find that call extremely overwhelming for say first 3 times, and then 4th time they'll be like, if I attend this one call, right? Like, I'm like, I'll do everything. So let me this one call I have to be sharp. Like, let me have my coffee ready before this, So I think that's what this 10 a.m. call is now.
I think we've talked a lot about teams and how you're working with a different bunch of people now. One question that always comes to my mind, I have learned over the last 8-9 years to not think about it because the answers are usually scary. What is it that the team that I lead, what do they talk about me behind my back? What do they think about me behind the back? Do you guys have an answer to that? I'm sure you have enough faux pas, you've had enough incidents, experiences when you overheard things about yourself. So what are the nice and not so nice things that you think your team talks about you behind your back? क्या सोचते हो तुम्हारे बारे में? राहुल कैसा है? कुछ तो आइडिया होगा, I'm sure. कुछ ना कुछ तो सुना होगा.
बहुत ज़्यादा आइडिया नहीं है, but I'll talk about one incident, right? Initially, early days, first year, second year, CG wala. I think at that time, we were all very serious about. Our culture has also evolved over time, right? Earlier we were just,
Earlier we were also working 20 hours a day.
Yeah, get the work done, right? So much to do, right? So I also didn't interact so much with the team, right? It was all work and all of that, right? A little bit here and there, Wednesday movies that we used to do, but nothing more than that, right? Then one fine day we had our offsite. I think somewhere in farmhouse, one of the farmhouse, we went there, and then one of the teammates came to me and shook hand. उसके बाद उसने बोला एक बात पूछूं मैं आपसे. मैंने कहा पूछो. आप इतना हमेशा सीरियस क्यों रहते हो? मैं कभी आपसे बात ही नहीं कर पाया. That day I felt यार कि maybe I intentionally, unintentionally have built some sort of distance from my team, wherein they felt that there's some gap in between, right? They weren't able to communicate very clearly. They weren't able to share things.
But now you have a much bigger team from 2016, 17 or 18, whenever, right? अब क्या होता है तुझे लगता है? Now there are like 30-40 people thinking about Rahul.
Abhi very less idea.
Do you think they have a WhatsApp group where you, like everyone but you is there? Do you think they have one? They have, that you're sure of?
They do, right? Wherein they sort of...
They are talking about it.
I know there is one for me also, for sure. because there are things that I tell one person in their feedback or whatever.
They'll come back.
Oh, this has happened.
They'll come around to me.
This has happened.
So I'm an entirely different person. I'm like, ye, kuch to hua hai. How is the narrative of the entire team changing? Very slowly.
This has happened 1 month back only.
Oh wow. Please tell us, Rahul.
So I won't talk about the context as such, but 1 month back we were all discussing. There were also certain responsibilities being added, etc. Right? And then one person came to me and said that I just want to talk about certain things with you, right? Because 6 people have approached me. They haven't come to you. Then I sat with him and then I understood.
Nice. Do you have any such stories, Shivangi? I'm sure you do.
I do.
So what do you think your team says behind your back?
One thing that my team does that I got to know some time back was they don't come to me with bad news in the mornings. Apparently, I am not very pleasant in the mornings because I have so many calls and everything. So if there is a bad news, there is 1 or 2 people who are assigned to deliver it, and it's usually towards the end of the day in the evening. And I realized that and I was like, I need to drink my coffee earlier. But yeah, one thing is that is coming to me.
And what time of the day would that be? I will also refrain from calling in the morning.
I think after 11 o'clock, I'm more chill. I'm in work mode.
No, so after you've had your second coffee,
Yeah, is when I'm like more mellow. I'm like opposite in that way. The more coffee I drink, the more mellow I get.
God bless coffee for us.
Yeah, so towards the end of the day is the bad news time. So that is something that I got to know. The other thing that I got to know was my team also thought that I'm very serious and very like only about the work. And then offsites happen and then lunches happen and I meet them in the office. The people that I meet for the first time, first of all, they realize that I'm younger than I sound. I don't know for what reason. And secondly, they realize that, okay, I am easy to talk to, I hope.
Well, I think the first 5 years of us working together, you were the easiest of all the 9 girls that used to report me. Shivangi was the most chill.
9. That's a
9.
number.
It was quite a lot. It was quite a lot.
I'm sure.
And Shivangi is the most chill one. She was friends with everyone. I remember there was this question that used to be there in my 360-degree form review of everyone. That who you admire the most in your team, who do you sort of gel with the most. For 6 or 7 consecutive months, it was always Shivangi. All of them. Unanimously, Shivangi was the most favorite person of everybody for 6-7 months.
That's amazing.
And then Shivangi got more work and then that answer changed.
Rest, as they say, is history.
Never happened again. So one of the feedbacks that I got was that from Shikhar in one of these forms only was, don't be best friends with everyone. You cannot be everyone's best friend.
I'm like, you're doing something wrong if everybody thinks that you're the best friend.
Yeah.
So I was like, be harsh, it's okay. You can criticize people.
And that was the day and today's the day. I don't think I've heard that again. What about you, Vikim? You also have a very varied, sort of like a team that is sort of distributed and sort of does very different things from a lot of regular CG work. So what do they think about you?
I think, and also my team consists of pole extremities in terms of characters. You have Shivani, who is she gels with everyone. She knows how to get things done. She is like the CIA of the team sort. She'll know every piece of information in the organization. And then you have Vijender, who is extremely serious to the point he comes from a ex-Niti Aayog background, right? So it's like you'll have to force him to smile in a meeting, right? He's point to point. Anything has to be on email. He's like, I'll not pick up a phone and call someone and speak to them, right? So you have to definitely, I think what they will be thinking about me is I force them to do a lot of things, specifically because they have to grow themselves into being better individuals or holistic individuals. But the other thing is I think they will be bitching about me in terms of saying that I'm extremely particular about details, right? So anything that they work on, I catch the minute mistake and tell them, and they are like, yeah, this could have gone through. You should not have you should let it go types. And the another thing is I sort of let myself be approachable at all times.
Or at least you think so.
I think so, right? I think so. So
We don't know for sure.
Yeah. So I also expect that for me, the fastest information has to flow out from me if I get some information, right? So I can call them at any time, but then sometimes I realize they also feel that, I should not get a call from you on a Sunday evening of sorts. I realize after making the phone call and say, sorry to disturb you on a holiday or sorts.
What about you?
Couple of things, right? One, I think people I work with definitely talk about my work ethic behind my back. I think initially it irks them that I'm like very like 5 means 4:59 and not 5:01, because if it's 5:01 you're hearing a message from me. So initially people get very troubled saying what kind of calendars or reminders you have and how are you able to remember every single time you gave to different people. But I think sooner or later they also start talking about how that makes me extremely reliable. And I think that's how I've realized people around me are leveraging me because the level of reliability is pretty high. The other thing I think is people behind my back talk a lot about who I am outside office, and that's how I'd like to be known.
And is that a funner side of you?
Hugely. I have a 4-year-old. I spend all my weekends with her. So I get messages saying we look forward to like Saturday, because like no message, no Slack, no call from Akanksha. It's just going to be her WhatsApp status updates of like traveling somewhere or doing something fun. Most of my teammates are on my Instagram, which is where life outside work
I have a follow-up
happens.
question.
But yeah.
Is there a movie character that you can relate to as a boss?
As
there
a
are a lot of
this
movies.
this question I've never been able. I don't watch movies. Two, this question I find very tricky in general. But these two, one movie character and two, what spirit animal. These two questions I've never been able to answer in my life.
Boss one is like, usually movie bosses are very mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, all boss.
Which is the answer that I wanted to get out of all of you, because I feel that is what your team is saying behind your back.
No, that's only in movies.
No, I think also the perception, for me, I think personally perception changes when a person is at the receiving end of me versus they need something from me. I think when they're at the receiving end, they're like, oh, she's so mean. Versus when they need something from me, they'll be like, oh, she's so quick and approachable. So I think for me, with everyone who works with me, there's an inflection point. And I've now realized that consciously that has to happen for everyone to understand that there are those two sides, right? So we were talking about Gen Z a little earlier. So I had a Gen Z write to me a message on a particular day and something yaar. And I'm like, 13 years elder to you. Right? Like, but that's how people talk to me when they get to know me versus another person actually wrote a 10-line message asking for a phone call. And I'm like, it could simply have been here, Akanksha, up for a quick call. And they're like, oh, sorry. And I'm like, so there are people who would write, because they think that degree of formality exists versus there are people who'll write yaar in a WhatsApp message. And
I think we can't conclude this without talking about this new wave of people coming out, which is purportedly the Gen Z.
Yeah.
And I think you have some experience working with Gen Z. Probably you're the only one.
My entire team is Gen Z.
Wow. So Siddharth, what do you think they think about you?
I wish I knew, but they probably think I'm mean.
They do?
Like working on backend systems, we need to be like very reliable. Like we need to be very reliable. So it's pretty. So I often tell them the same thing again and again, right? I ask them to test the same thing 10 times.
Yeah.
So they probably think कि क्यों same चीज ही क्यों बोलता रहता है.
Monitor आ गया.
So how is it working with Gen Zs? Please tell us one mantra.
So I think they pay more emphasis to work-life balance. They have a greater emphasis on work-life balance, but that doesn't mean they are not productive, right? Yeah. And it only encourages the others in the team to work smarter and not harder.
Yeah. I personally feel like whatever interactions, like my cousins and some people from work also, I know who are from a different or a much younger age group. I have just been fascinated by these people. I mean, these kids that are coming. I mean, I don't think I had that kind of clarity when I was 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, or even 22, 23 when we had started. We had ConveGenius with us, but I did not have that clarity about work, about life, about what you want to do, what you don't want to do. I just get stumbled, and I can't wait for more of this workforce to sort of be a part of ConveGenius and be the next wave of change in the company.
I remember that there was a point of time when the average age of my team was around 25, I being the oldest, right? So, and there were more than few Gen Zers, freshly graduated out of college, having done their masters, and I realized that they are fearless in voicing their opinions and holding you accountable for their career goals, for their career satisfaction. But they have also consciously chosen to work alongside you on this high impact journey for solving problems, right? And if they don't get that kind of satisfaction or input from you, they will not think twice in terms of coming to you for directions or guidance or offering themselves up more, and then realizing that they have extreme potential but also extreme learning curve, right? And I think that has made me realize that it has been a extremely positive roller coaster ride where I have come out on the positive front. Yeah.
Also, that brings me to my next question, which is, since you all talked about, having different teams, working with people from different age groups, you said much older, much younger, you said very much a new wave of people. Are there people in your team who end up teaching you something every day, or who just sort of surprise you? What stories do you have about your own learning experiences from the people who are actually working with you on a daily basis?
So me being on the content academic side of things, we were building some content for SwiftChat incidentally, and I have some young people like Ishit in the team, and he was telling me about K-pop. And for some reason, I was not aware of K-pop at all. But I'm not into international music a lot. And he just kept on going about K-pop, K-pop. I thought it was an ice cream flavor.
Yeah, that's what I also thought when I heard it for the first time. I was like, maybe it's the new.
It's a new ice cream
or
flavor
something,
that
yeah.
everyone is obsessed with. He told me about BTS Army, and I was like, what is happening right now? And then we got to know that our generation, like people who are in tier 2, tier 3 cities, they also know who K-pop is, and they are part of BTS Army. And then I realized I can learn a lot about pop culture and what is happening from these people. And it was great fun. Like now I listen to K-pop, I know who BTS is, and I'm enjoying it. So that they bring new experiences to you. As I said, my team is a mixture of Gen Z, millennials, Gen X also. And it's like a great fun just to like buddy one person who is like a 50-year-old retired now and a 23-year-old fresh out of college. And the kind of ideas that they come up with together. I think it's great fun.
I think they bring in a lot of fresh energy, right, in general.
Not just, I'm not talking about just people from a different generation, just generally people around you, people who are reporting to you. Do you have learnings from them? And what kind of learning would be the biggest thing that you've learned from somebody who's reporting to you actually?
I think over the years, right, you start with, first of all, I don't know, I think my definition of leadership was something different. Initially, right, as I was mentioning earlier also, right, there was some sort of silos being created, right? But over the time, you know, as you trust, as you build that relation with people in your team, right, I think you actually open up yourself to a lot more learnings also, right? For example, I have Ujjwal in the team, right? I have now Prakash, who's more of a Gen Z, right? Brings in a lot of new perspectives in everything that we do, right? Ujjwal has been in the system for quite some time, right? Understands, brings in that experience. And then we have new people joining in. We have Srinivas, Ashish, many others, right? Who are bringing in a little bit of experience. Some are coming from the other players also, have that experience in mind, right? But they are teaching you every day. They are teaching each others as well. Because we have that structure, right, wherein they all come together and problem solve. Even if they're not working on that problem of that particular state, they are cross-sharing their learnings. You being there as a leader, you also get to learn a lot from them, right? Maybe some things that do not come to your mind intrinsically, right? They come up with all of those ideas, right? So
I'm a very strong believer of collective intelligence. I feel like collective intelligence has like a compounded effect on problem solving rather than...
Exactly. There's nothing that can beat it actually, especially when you have this culture in the team, right? For example, I have Sham in the team, right? Who brings in, I think, 30 years of experience, right? Of actually implementing EdTech on ground, getting assessments done, etc. Right? And then on the other side,
we don't need to externalize this. I'm sorry I'm bringing this up, but the two of you together have a much higher collective intelligence than two of you working separately.
Yeah,
For people who don't, know this, Rahul and Shivangi are usually at loggerheads because, I mean, obviously they're trying to work on the same problem, but from different perspectives. And usually what comes out as a jhagda and fight and wars and battles are essentially collective brainstorming processes. And I very strongly believe in the merit of, you know, having, that's what they talk, that's what they say about democracy also, right?
Yeah.
It works because there is a mighty opponent that is sort of sitting to question you and not your motives but your solution.
The day we start getting along is the day we have stopped thinking.
Yeah, and I think that is one thing that I can say for everybody sitting here. I mean, I have never seen Siddharth to sort of bend his back for something that he doesn't believe in. Till date, I'm not sure if any of you know this, but if there is one person in my 10 years of working here at ConveGenius whose design sense I do take holier than my own, it is Siddharth. So a lot of times nobody gets to know this, but all my WhatsApp messages to Siddharth are कि यार ये देखना ही ठीक लग रहा है क्या? At least in the last 6 years, I've sent him 2.5, I've sent him 2 to, matlab he sat with us only to sort of design it. So we do that, and I feel like that is happening more and more as we're coming together in a singular space. We're talking to each other more, we're sort of brainstorming more, we're fighting more and sort of coming up with better solutions.
this has actually worked well in our favor only, right?
Yeah.
Best products are made on whiteboards. I'm a huge believer of that. And I think we are seeing that right now also.
Also with good intentioned opposing forces. Nobody obviously is trying to dethrone anybody. People are only trying to work towards the same problem, which is impact.
There is no throne.
There is no throne. Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And in fact, that is one thing that I would want all of you to sort of think about and probably talk a little bit more about also is the kind of flat structure that, I mean, I wouldn't say flat in terms of reporting structure, but flat in terms of information hierarchy, flat in terms of conversations, flat in terms of how people from different teams just approach you and say, hey, you know what, this is what is happening and I don't know what to do and stuff like that.
I think it's coming from the top. Like there was a time when every Saturday, just around lunchtime, Jaraj used to call me with a new idea. Every Saturday. I basically postponed my lunchtime after that because I thought he calls me at 2 o'clock every Saturday with a new idea. So it happens from the top. Shikhar calls up randomly, Jaraj calls up, and there is no like, okay, this is programs team, so Shashank won't call or Jaraj won't call. So it's happening from the top, and that is what is going down also. So I get approached by Prakash all the time without Rahul even knowing. And he asked me, okay, this is the problem that I'm seeing in data. Can you do something about it? So that is a flat structure that everyone is following. They can go and approach anyone in office. I just go and approach the legal team, although they work a lot in silo, but I just talk to them like general legal stuff. So that is a good thing, and that is also where you get to know what other teams are doing, and sometimes you get to know the other perspective also. Because you see a problem from only your lens. When you talk to them, you try and understand their problems, what they are facing. Then also I think we become a better team player as a company.
What's fascinating about this space also is it's not demarcated for teams, right?
Yeah. That is the first mandate that I made, that I will not mark any seats for anyone.
Yeah, right. So
Let people
when,
just come and sit wherever.
Yeah, so when this space came about being, and I'm seeing a lot of new faces, I'm like, it would have been easier to navigate if there were like banners saying marketing, tech, back-end, front-end, platform, you know. But it's not. So you're like, hey, who's Gauransh? Could you point, is Gauransh an office? Like, who's, but I think that's also made the space so much fun because like people are just here and you can literally just approach. So what's fascinating is you approach one work desk and the three around are then sort of like eavesdropping, right? And then before you know, it's become a group conversation because like they are from different teams and then
some great ideas in that conversation.
Yeah, and you know, then something brews there and so I think this space itself is pretty conducive for that kind of environment where you just walk up to someone's desk and then a conversation just grows from there.
This is what we've been trying to do for the last 2 years, and I know I wasn't here to sort of, the forerunner for this, but this was really the idea to just let people come and talk to each other because I realized that this whole team thing is very overrated. Like, just work on problems.
Yeah.
And with different groups, you work on different problems, whoever you think is relevant. Because sometimes I've seen, I have caught up people from HR and legal and everybody together in the lunchroom also. I'm like, acha, ye problem, let's just sit and solve. We were just sitting with Tanvi the other day and we were talking about ETNB fellowship and I was like, Tanvi, you have to solve this problem now. Just come and sort out hiring for ETNB fellows and stuff.
It also forces you to personally go and solve the problem, right? Instead of
Yeah.
go and talk to that person and figure out a solution to this problem.
But I think that also makes it so much easier rather than looking at the calendars and scheduling a slot. You literally walk up to them and even if they're in a call, you're basically standing on your head. Saying it's okay, wrap it up. Like I need 30 seconds of your time. I think just the pace also fastens up so much. So, which already anyways is pretty fast. But just people sitting in the same space means you will get that 30-second slot right then and there and things move forward.
It just makes it quicker, I think.
Very quick.
This is also something that we are missing.
I
think COVID sort of disrupted that, but I think now we are back to our
regular mojo.
Yeah. Also the
Which is to
tonality.
disturb
right?
everybody around you to get things done.
Yeah.
For me, I think the biggest problem is just to call people and get hold of them when they're in meetings and this and that. Yahan pe you're like, listen, you're in a meeting, it's fine, I'll just write this down, just take care of this.
No, I think it also helps when you have the person in front of you, the body language, the tonality, right? Like I sometimes feel like written text sort of miss that out.
No, you connect better.
You connect so
Even
much
video
better.
calls can't do justice.
They
to
can't.
it.
They can't. You
It's
just connect. You connect so much.
Very
so much better.
overrated. Most of the times you're just asking if, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Oh,
Is my screen audible? Is my screen audible?
No, I remember there have been times when I have come into office and looked for Rahul. राहुल आया क्या ऑफिस, बात कर लेता हूँ यार, अभी मौका मिलेगा राहुल से बात करने के लिए.
Correct.
No, I think which is why as a company also we're sort of motivating everybody to come to office a few days at least to
Yeah.
build relationships. I'll tell you why I wanted to do this is because I have a relationship with all of you because I have worked with you for so long, right? The good, bad, ugly, everything we've done together. When you have a relationship with somebody, it's just very easy to put your perspective
Yeah.
in front.
Yeah.
Ki bhai, this is the problem I am facing. Now I know you also might have a problem, so let's just figure out how to do it together.
Yeah.
I just wanted everybody to come together to build these interpersonal relationships because problem solving was beginning to get hard.
Yeah. Also navigating a hard day, which happens all the time, right? And if you're sitting by yourself at your home while something out there, and then because the problem itself is so huge and massive that for those moments you'll feel the weight on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Versus when you're in this space, your brain tells you that
You have a shared responsibility.
You have a shared responsibility. I think it just shifts how you're feeling.
Right.
About a hard day.
Right. I remember one such situation when we had a deadline to submit something to a client, and when we were working remotely, I didn't realize that the individual was overburdened, and she had a difficult period sharing work, right? Because she was in a certain zone of herself. And then being here, I could see that, few members, others could come in and pitch and take some effort from her or work from her, and it would have eased all the effort. That happened so quickly, and we were able to meet the deadline, we were able to solve problem, and that individual ultimately felt very light, right? And happy that there was such a team and that a support system which could see that she was overwhelmed and help her out.
I also feel the snacking gets diversified when you're working. Like if you're at home, you only get offered one thing which is available. But like if you're here, you could just like take a walk around and you could like get 5 options.
I got her cashews this morning. I was very happy about it.
To me, that's one of the top 3 perks of being in a space like this. You just have a variety of snacks to munch.
I am though a very mobile worker, so I get my steps in. Like by the time I leave the office, I'm already 10,000 steps. So I'm like,
I
this is
actually
great.
made a WhatsApp
For the
group.
longest time, my feedback to Shivangi was, Shivangi, if I see you standing up one more time, I'm going to chain you to your desk. Because in the previous office, B52, right? Oh my God, my room was right in front of her desk, and her entire team used to sit there. I think, Shivangi, how and when do you get work? How are you functional? If I see you up and standing again, I will chain you to your desk.
I used to get this, but I think that what worked for me. Like as a leader, that worked for me. Being there for my team, solving their.
It's easy to give feedback, when you're sitting on somebody's computer and you're like,
And they also don't feel so alone in doing a humongous task. If you have a very huge delivery and your manager is sitting with you, like I have this story, I have to tell it, and it involves Shikhar although he is the host. So we used to work very late nights. We had a project called Nanni Kali, and they were like Shukla ji, me, Shikhar, Abhilasha, a lot of people. And even the tech team, they were also working for content at that point in time. Everyone was translating Telugu, Urdu, and it was great fun. And Shikhar was a huge fan of Abida Parveen or something.
Abida Parveen, yeah.
And he used to play the songs.
Oh, lovely.
And there was like a
not lovely.
Not lovely.
We used
I
to
love
put
Not everybody.
sleep because we were working at 3 o'clock at night. We have been at it for 23 hours already. And Shikhar is playing, and I'm like, ऐसा लग रहा है लोरी है. And because of that, we set up a system कि everyone can only play one song, then someone else will play. So that Shikhar comes in rotation only like 10th time. And he was like, if off for washroom or something, we used to skip his
Alright, and they used to make me listen to those
Punjabi songs.
There was this one weird song, that to something.
Kareena Kapoor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. From Abida Parveen to Tutu.
Exactly. I mean that song has no lyrics. It has only these.
Also doesn't have lyrics.
अलाप कहते से. What is this? कैसे गाने बन रहे हैं आजकल?
Yeah. We need to. The PG-16, whatever warning needs to happen now for this. Something they've got.
So we used to reverse torture him by that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Skip his turn a lot when but the good thing was he was there. Like at 3 o'clock at night, he could have given us the work and left. He was there, he was sitting, he was listening to his songs, whatever, but he was there. So I think that really shaped up everyone else who came after them also. The managers that we are also, we are there with you in the trenches. Do whatever you need to do. We'll do it with you. So I think that has helped a lot.
I think there's also value, lot of strength and value in going through. I mean, I know shared trauma is not the right word, but there's a lot of value in going through these shared difficult experiences. It just sort of really brings the team together. Have you? I mean, I know about the content because I was always there. Have you guys also gone through certain experiences that have, like, brought the team together because of the shared trauma or the shared responsibility, as Akanksha puts it?
No, I think in general, right, offline connects have worked very well. I think 6 months back, we had first offline connect after quite some time. That's when people actually got to know each other a little bit better. We went out, right? And then when they connected, and now it's the relationship that you were talking about, right? Things become very easy, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, we are all humans, right? We work on
And
relations.
have the same motivation.
So I think the work gets much more easier, right? Now they're actually cross-leveraging each other also. If one has a bandwidth, he's gonna ask, "Do you have any work? Let's do it." Right? It's that kind of relation now. That's it.
I have one more question, I think, which is a very broad, general question. It's a very point of view sort of a thing. EdTech has gone through its own journey. It was sort of teething when we started ConveGenius. Then it sort of grew a full set of baby teeth, I feel, and then now maybe it's in a inflection point, and it's sort of EdTech is trying to adjust to the reality of the world at large, and also more to India, because India as a place is not easy to work in EdTech because languages change, dialects change, and obviously there's a scarcity of resources and all. As established or ever learning leaders in the EdTech space, I have not known any of you to work in any other space than EdTech, right? As the leaders who probably people are looking at for answers, what is your conviction about EdTech, and what makes you still convinced, or what makes you to believe that EdTech can and will change the world at some point in time?
I think I have real examples, right? I've been involved for the last 10 years now in the assessment space, and traditionally assessments were always thought of, doing pen and paper based, also doing in-person assessments and stuff. And look at how EdTech has shifted the paradigm, right? Yeah. Look at what is happening in Himachal with the use case of OCR assessments. For the first time in a state, we are able to do on a single day census assessments, digitize the data which traditionally used to take about 3 weeks. We have digitized the data in under 48 hours and are able to present preliminary stats and insights in under a week. And so you find that EdTech can be plugged to solve problems everywhere, and as we go into the future has the best promise of delivering solutions at scale. Let it be either learning oriented or insights driven, or putting problems, visualizing problems in front of people, forcing them to take actions on solving them, right? Look at the Vidya Samiksha Kendra example, for example.
Yeah.
It forces people to see the problems in front of them.
Right.
Are we almost, sorry, I'm trying to paraphrase here, but are we then trying to say, and this is for the four of you to think about, are we then saying that it was fairly premature of the market to think of EdTech as a problem, EdTech as a solution for learning, just learning? Because education is a much wider canvas and has various problems to solve for, and EdTech can't just be thought of as a tool just for learning. Obviously, it has to be about learning also, but there are so many problems to solve for in the education sector.
Yeah, 2000%.
Yeah. No, I
Is
think
that you're learning also from the ground?
yeah.
Because
That's correct. That's 100% correct, right? So EdTech is not just about putting a great product in the hands of the users, right? It's much more than that. For example, the use case that we try and solve for day in, day out, right, is not just about students, it's also about teachers, right? Empowering them, empowering stakeholders to take the right decisions, right? Until that happens, you're not really leveraging the potential of technology. I think the whole understanding of EdTech that the market has needs to change very soon, and I think people looking at ConveGenius have now also started to realize what EdTech can essentially do, right? I think VK mentioned about Vidya Samiksha Kendra. That is an example of how do you do data-driven education, right? How do you do data-driven decision making, etc. on ground. I think the system is also realizing now, because earlier all of these research organizations have tried putting ConveGenius in the EdTech bracket of K-12, etc. And then within that also, there are certain edtechs which are helping you prepare for competitive exams. There are some edtechs which are helping you with K-12, etc., which is fine. But I think within, like, how do you really segregate? The market really needs to think through that a little bit more.
So it's not just a student play, it's a system play.
It's a system play. It's a completely system play. For example, I'll take the example, right? We have a child in Himachal who's selling pani puri in the evening. He's able to learn through SwiftChat at his own time, and is also able to support his sibling, right, with certain words, etc., right, so that she can also pick up those sentences over time. I think that's the power of EdTech in general, right? If you just limit it to like the top tier, etc., and that's where you're playing, that's your understanding of EdTech. I think that's not really true.
Do you also believe that this is a little bit more for you, Siddharth, because you come from that kind of a background and belief is, do you also believe that EdTech can't be one app because it's not one problem that we're trying to solve for? It has to be an array of solutions for array of stakeholders and array of problems.
So I think this perception also results from the fact that it's only B2C EdTech products that are aggressively marketed. And especially so in the last 3-4 years when people have been learning, students have been learning from home. So that is why people think that, you know, like EdTech is just a learning app.
So the EdTech boom that we saw was not just the EdTech boom, it was like a student play boom of student play B2C organizations that are pushing expensive products to students who can't possibly afford them.
But I think in the last 3-4 years, we have optimized many government processes as well. using EdTech.
We stayed away from it, like we consciously stayed away from it. And I think EdTech is an industry that works in dog years. I used to say that too. I think someone, ki every other industry, 50 years, 100 years, they have been working the same. Their playbook is the same. In EdTech, the playbook keeps on changing and you need to change with it. With the advent of AI, we have seen big players like coming down. And we have seen like if you stay humble to your roots, if you remember your mission, and if you always equate EdTech to impact, like I think no one ever does that. The people who get marketed, they're not equating it to impact. We equated it to impact, so we have survived and we have thrived. So I think that is something that the industry now is learning as well. That EdTech work in dog years and you need to move quickly and you need to think quickly.
Yeah, and one of the biggest promises of EdTech was this whole concept which the founders and co-founders have also reiterated, is the ability to democratize access to education. And look at what is happening, right? So either through our platforms, knowledge, any kind of knowledge in the K-12 space is free to children across India or the world, as long as they have a device, right, in their hands. And with the advent of digital devices being accessible to students either at home or in the schools, and internet being accessible to everybody, now knowledge has become sort of 24-hour reachable to students, right? They can continue, they can learn something at school, they can continue back their learning at home, accessing our platform through their devices, and anybody can have this information, right? And we are not even restricting the platform to only ConveGenius developed bots or apps, right? Third-party partners who work along with us, even their apps are present on our app store.
Building on top of what Vicky and Rahul said, right? I think EdTech as an industry needs to first understand what education is. I think EdTech started with a wrong understanding of education per se. What it understood education was teaching and learning, whereas education is, I mean, that is just such a small part of education in general, right? What people have equated education to is young people sitting in a physical space learning via a facilitator, and that's such a narrow definition of education. And you said, will it change? I think it has changed already. It changed many years back. Now what we need to do is say, okay, what education really means, and so where does technology then come into play, right? Education is equally important for me. So is it for my mother right now, who's sitting at home with my 4-year-old who had a first online class today, right? Like, So for my mother, EdTech plays a role. It's not just my 4-year-old, it's also my mother. Probably more my mother than my daughter, because for my daughter, what she did today is not very different from the cartoon she watches on TV. It's just that instead of cartoon, there was a familiar face, right? But it was also for my mother. So I think, how are we really defining education? Today, my daughter did some physical activities and a Shanti part. And that's the update I got on WhatsApp, right? I wasn't there to see her doing that. So I think EdTech has changed. But what everyone in the industry really needs to understand is what education is to begin with. Is education about someone giving something? Or is it, me creating something, me applying my knowledge, me trying to extract wisdom without it being served to me in a certain structured manner, right? So education itself, I think the definition needs to be re-looked at for the EdTech to then start looking at saying, okay, there are a million things to solve for, and of course one app can't do that.
Anyway, at a country scale, right? If you look at country scale, the current definition won't really make the country, go anywhere. Right, I think that's where we actually need to relook at what exactly EdTech means.
Till the time we keep putting skills separately and K-12 separately and education, and that's not education, right? It's just all.
When we're talking about lifelong learning.
Absolutely, that's what we are talking about right now.
Sometimes I feel EdTech is sort of paid with the term disruption, right? Which is in some manner true. As long as there are realistic problems like climate disruptions or health disruptions, the immediate delivery of education that we fall back on is EdTech delivery. Because school shut down, everything shut down, but education has to continue. Learning has to continue, right? That medium is through EdTech.
Thank you guys. This was very enlightening. I think we've had a great time sort of talking about various things, about the kind of people we want in the organization, our own learnings in the last 6, 7, 8, 10 years of building ConveGenius brick by brick. This last segment particularly, which was around impact, and I think this is something that I have struggled with a lot. And some very interesting conversations have sort of come in about, the meaning of the word education, or what the industry is doing in education, and the kind of myths that ConveGenius has busted in the last 10 years about education and what EdTech really means and what EdTech should really be doing. And we should talk a little bit more about it in our next episode of CG Baat. Stay tuned.